Alright, guys, I know the Super Bowl is tomorrow, but before I get into that, I'm going to get into that a little later. I wanted to talk about something I saw this morning that kind of, I don't know, set me off a little bit. The 2009 Hall of Fame class got released this morning. The 6 players that are going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. And here's the list. Number 1 is Bob Hayes, who's been, trying to get into the Hall of Fame for feels like a couple decades now. Every year he's a candidate, and every year he doesn't quite get in. And this year he finally got in, and that's kind of the big news this year. So you're probably going to go look at his numbers, because some of you may not know who he is, and you're going to see less than 400 catches, 7,500 receiving yards, and 71 touchdowns. You're going to see 3 Pro Bowls. You're going to see 4 All-Pro selections. You're going to see a Super Bowl ring, and you're going to think, what the hell is this guy doing in the Hall of Fame? I know why he is in there, because he changed the game. He pretty much invented zone coverage. Before Bob Hayes, almost every time defenses would play man-to-man and just let it be what it would be. But Bob Hayes was so fast, and he would run streak routes and get open deep, that teams would start using zone defenses so they would be ready for his speed. And the zone defenses that we see in the NFL today are largely born from his influence on the league as a receiver. So that's why he's there. You can agree with him being there or not, whatever. Number 2 is Randall McDaniels. He was a great offensive lineman for the Vikings from all through the 90s. That was his era. He played all through the 90s. He made 12 Pro Bowls, and I think like 12 All-Pro teams. Something like that. It was like 10 or 9 or something. But 12 Pro Bowls, great offensive lineman on the Vikings, played on one of the greatest offenses in NFL history in the 1998 Vikings. Never made it to a Super Bowl, but he had a great career. He played 220 career games, so I'm going to say, yeah, he definitely deserved to get in. 3 is Bruce Smith. Nothing needs to be said about Bruce Smith. 200 career sacks, the all-time sack leader, one of the greatest defensive ends, if not the greatest, to ever play the game, along with Reggie White and Deacon Jones. Just a complete monster. Played in 4 Super Bowls. He never got to win one, but hey, it's Bruce Smith, guys. I think this was his first year of eligibility. If it's not, I'm kind of surprised, but I know the league, the Hall of Fame, is biased against defensive players a lot. Oh, and by the way, I know a lot of Cowboys fans are going to be happy about Bob Hayes getting in, because the common conception is that the Hall of Fame doesn't like the Dallas Cowboys very much, so Bob Hayes finally getting in, hopefully, it won't seem that apparent. Derek Thomas got in, number 4. I've been wanting him to get in for a while, because even though his career ended early, even though he died when he was like 32 in that car accident, you look at his stats, they're still some of the greatest all time. Just off those years he did play, he was one of probably the top 10 outside linebackers to ever play the game, one of the top 10 pass rushers, all that. So had he played out his entire career, he could have been the best. It didn't happen, but his story, from his play on the field to his untimely demise, is a huge part of NFL history, and he finally got in. I know he was held out a couple years, but he's in. Next is Rod Woodson, and I think this is his first year of eligibility. We all know about Rod Woodson, one of the greatest defensive backs ever. Lots of plays made, interceptions, played for a lot of teams, won some Super Bowls. Great player. I don't really got to say anything about him. Number 6 is Ralph Wilson Jr., who owns, and pretty much does everything with the Buffalo Bills. And, that's a huge part of NFL history, because the Bills are a, significant part of NFL lore. Even though they've never won a Super Bowl, they've done a lot of great things. They've had a lot of great players. So I'm going to say it's about time. Now, here's what bothered me. That's a pretty good list of players, but where is Cris Carter? And I was looking at this, I was looking at the resumes of all these guys that did make it, and I was like, this is all good, but where is Cris Carter? Let me read some stuff off to you. In terms of career receptions, he is the 3rd best receiver of all time. He is one catch behind Marvin Harrison for second all-time. Marvin Harrison just passed him. Marvin Harrison is one catch, has one more career catch than Cris Carter. In career receiving yards, Cris Carter is 7th all-time. He was just passed this last year by Marvin Harrison, Terrell Owens, and a couple years ago he was passed by Isaac Bruce. So he was 4 as recent as 2 years ago. Right now he's 7th. Randy Moss is going to catch him next year. Torrey Holt might in a couple years, but he's going to stay in the top 10 for quite a while. In career touchdowns, he is 4th with 130. He's 5 behind Randy Moss, 9 behind Terrell Owens. Marvin Harrison might pass him, I don't know. Isaac Bruce has a snowball's chance in hell to catch him, I guess, which it's not impossible, but it probably won't happen. But you look at these numbers, he is one of the top 5 greatest receivers to ever play this game. So I don't know why. Last year he got held out, and I was like, why? What did he do? He's probably the 3rd or 4th best receiver to ever play this game, and why is he getting held out? I know he never played in the Super Bowl, but the wide receiver position has very little control over how good their team is. That's up to the quarterback, the offensive line, the running back. They have way more control over how good a team is. A quarterback touches the ball 50 to 60 times a game. Running back touches it usually at least 20 times a game. As a wide receiver, that number varies from game to game so much based on things that are completely out of the wide receiver's control. It is really out of a wide receiver's hands how good the team is. If the 49ers had tried to build around Jerry Rice, they wouldn't have done anything. They won championships because they built around Steve Young and Joe Montana. Those were the 2 main reasons why they won Super Bowls. So I don't think that's fair. And I know there's some stuff about his reputation being hurt ever since he retired. Like the stuff he's done on ESPN, some of the things he's been involved in, I guess. I don't know all the details, but I know that's hurt him. This has never made sense to me, guys. It's like the world is not always good, you know? The bad things happen. It's not all candy and flowers or whatever. Like, the Baseball Hall of Fame is still insistent on keeping Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame. To me, the Hall of Fames all around the world need to be a definitive history of the game. You know, a detailed, definitive history of the game. And that includes the bad stuff. If you walked into a U.S. history museum, what would you think if they had completely ignored and said nothing and had nothing about Watergate or the Vietnam War or the Pearl Harbor or any of that bad stuff? It doesn't work. It's a part of history. Pete Rose is a part of baseball history, even though we don't like it. So I've always felt that Pete Rose needs to be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest hitters of all time, and you know he was involved in a huge scandal, obviously, but he is a huge part of baseball history, and to not put him there is to basically say we're going to ignore the things we don't like and pretend that everything that ever happened in baseball was good. And I know in a couple years, Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Roger Clemens, Rafael Palmeiro, Sammy Sosa, and Jason Giambi are going to have a hell of a time getting into the Hall of Fame for the same reason. And I have to say, let them in. You can talk about how they're disgraced players. Yeah, go ahead. But to ignore them is to ignore baseball history on the basis of the fact that you don't like it. So I don't care what Cris Carter has done off the field. He is a huge part of NFL history. You could argue he's the second best receiver to ever play the game. So, come on. Gotta let him in. I don't know why he was in this year. But I'm pretty sure he's going to get in next year or the year after. He's going to get in eventually. As for the rest of this Hall of Fame class, other snubs that I noticed, you know, for the most part I'm cool with this other than the Cris Carter thing, but I know Cortez Kennedy did not get in again, and I've kind of given up on him, but I'm a Seahawks fan. I have to root for Cortez Kennedy to get in there one day because he was an amazing player stuck on a shithole team. Who else? I know Paul Tagliabue didn't get in. I don't know how they view commissioners sometimes, so I'm kind of torn on that. I don't think too highly of it other way. That's about all I got. So, Hall of Fame inductions are out. It's good stuff. I'm going to be following it more, and I'm going to get to Super Bowl stuff a little later.